guys, Kelly here, and since it's June, I wanted to share with you the mid-year book freakout tag. And I haven't been tagged for this. This is just a lot of people do it around June, so I wanted to do it now so I could tell you some of my favorites so far this year, some things I'm looking forward to, some of my favorite characters, stuff like that so far in 2019. So this tag was created a while ago, and it had two co-creators, but I think one no longer does videos, or the video isn't available. So I'll link down below one of the creators that I could find, and I'll put her video down below. And now there are 13 questions, and a lot of them are about books I love, so let's get started. So number one is the best book you've read so far in the year. And I couldn't pick just one, because I've had so many 5-star reads so far this year. I don't know if I'm just more picking ones that are in my wheelhouse or if I'm just giving too many 5 stars, but whatever. I had a lot, so I ended up picking 3. I decided to pick 3 books because I read a really wide range of genres, so I picked one from 3 different genres, so you kind of see a taste of some of my favorites. So first, my favorite thriller of the year so far has been Confessions by Kanai Minato, and this is a translator book from Japanese, and this one just caught me by surprise. It's about a teacher whose child has died, her young child has died, and she starts off the book like gathering up her students and basically talking about the death of her child and how it relates to her classroom. It comes from different perspectives, so we're in the teacher at first, and then we follow different perspectives in each chapter. And yeah, it just really caught me off guard. It's really short, excellent. If you want a thriller or a translated book, I would highly recommend this one. And then next for fantasy, I read The Final Empire, the first book in the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. And I'm not a high fantasy person, so even though I knew he was popular and his books get really good ratings, I was afraid I wouldn't like it, and I ended up loving this story. I don't want to go through the whole synopsis because it's kind of hard to explain, but you know, the magic system involves ingesting metals and using those to have powers, and Mistborns are people that can influence all the metals instead of just one. And where you meet this girl that she's learning for the first time that she is a Mistborn, and her learning about the world and her powers and all that. And I just thought it was a really done book. It had a lot of things that shocked me, and I loved it, and I want to continue the series. And then the next is my favorite nonfiction book, and that was Into Thin Air by Jon Krakauer. This book has been around for a while, and I've owned it for a while, and I don't know why I didn't get around to it, but I did this year, and I loved it. This is a story about a deadly year on Mount Everest. When was this? 1996 was one of the deadliest years on Mount Everest. A lot of people died, and Jon Krakauer was actually part of the expedition that was like going up there, like part of one of the groups. So he knew a lot of the people that died that year, and so this is his story from being somebody, even though he's a journalist in writing, he was actually there when these tragedies occurred. So I thought it was just a really impactful story to hear about these events from somebody that was actually there. So those are my 3 favorites so far this year. And then number 2 is best sequel read so far in 2019. So this is another favorite book, but since it's a sequel, I put it here. It seems like I started a lot of new series, and a lot of my 5 stars were beginning of series. So this is one of the only like sequels that got 5 stars, and it is King of Mist by Jordan Rivet. This is the second book in the Steel and Fire series. I've read the first 3 so far in 2019, and I'm really loving it. I cannot wait to finish it. And this is about a young woman named Dara, who is a duelist, and so there's a lot of sword fighting in this, fencing and all that, and just political intrigue, and I just really enjoy it. And the second one I just thought was even better than the first. Loved it. Number 3 is new releases you haven't read yet but you want to, and I didn't think that I had that many 2019 releases on my like to be read thing on Goodreads, but it turns out I have quite a few on there. I don't own any of them because I don't usually buy my books new, so these are a few that I'm just gonna pick because I know I have them as audiobooks on Scribd, so I know I'll probably get to them in the next couple months. And so one is The Test by Sylvain Nouvelle. I've never read anything by her, but I've heard that this one is kind of similar to a Black Mirror episode, so it sounded really interesting, and it's a short novella. And then the next is The Flat Chair by Beth O'Leary. This is a romance book, and this summer I'm kind of like craving some romance books, and so I think I'll pick up that audiobook. And the last one is Love from A to Z by S.K. Ali, and this will be the only book I've read by this author as well. I know she's wrote other things, but I just thought this one sounded really interesting. It's both a love story, but then also about family and personal issues that both main characters have. I think it has a lot of Muslim representation as well, so it just sounded like a good book. It's gotten really great reviews. So those are the top 3 I think that I want to read, that I know I will read in the next few months. And then number 4 is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year. So that would be books that haven't come out yet. And I don't necessarily keep really close look on what's coming out unless it's like from a favorite author. So the only ones that I have really that I'm anticipating are ones that authors I know I like, which I have Call It What You Want by Bridget Kemmerer. I've really liked some of the other books she's read, so I put this on my to-read list when it comes to the library. And then Casey West has a new book coming out maybe this time. I haven't necessarily loved her last couple new releases, so I'm not going to probably jump out and read this right away, but I know I'll get to it because as soon as it comes out on audiobook, if it's on Scribd, I'll probably read it like that because they're fun audiobooks to listen to. And then the last one that I'm really anticipating is Starsight, which is the sequel to Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. I just read Skyward a couple months ago, and I want to start finishing my series, so I would like to read the sequel when it comes out in November. I probably won't get to it right in November, but around that time, I would like to pick it up. Number 5 is my biggest disappointment. So this could have been one that I gave a low rating, that I expected more, or that I DNF'd. And I decided to go with a DNF because I was actually really disappointed that I didn't like this book and DNF'd it. And that was A Book of American Martyrs by Joyce Carol Oates. I had gotten this book because it was revolving around abortion, and it was supposed to be from both sides of the argument. And I just couldn't get into the writing style. I actually read, I would say, not quite halfway, but over a third, and I just could not get into her writing style at all. And it's such a big book that I just couldn't see myself dragging myself through the rest of this. So it's just disappointing because I bought it and I really was anticipating, thinking it would be hard-hitting, good way of looking at the like big issue that's happening right now in America, and it just was disappointing to me. And then the next one is Your Biggest Surprise. And for this one, I'm going with both This Savage Song and the sequel, Our Dark Duet by Victoria Schwab. I have not loved a lot of the books that Victoria Schwab has written that I've read. Like, I didn't really like Darker Shade of Magic. I didn't like at all City of Bones, her middle grade book. And I really didn't like Vengeful, the sequel to Vicious. So, like, I thought I was just going to give up on her as an author. But then I own this book already, and a friend of mine wanted to buddy read it, so I was like, okay. And I picked this one up, and I really enjoyed it. I read it in like 2 days, and I gave it 4.5 stars. Picked up the sequel pretty much right away, read that one very quickly, and gave that one 5 stars. So I was surprised because I thought I had written off this author permanently, but now I will probably continue to read her books. I just know that some of them aren't going to work for me, but knowing there's some gems in there, I'll keep giving her a try. Number 7 is favorite new author, and this could be an author that is writing their debut novel, or someone that is just new to you this year. And I'm going with Bridget Kemmerer, who was just new to me this year. I read Letters Still Lost, which is a YA book that's kind of dramatic. It's about a girl whose mother has just died, and she's writing letters to her mother at her grave, and somebody starts responding to those letters, and they have a writing letter relationship. And I love this book. I think I gave this one 5 stars. And then I also read A Curse So Dark and Lonely this year by Bridget Kemmerer, which this was a Beauty and the Beast retelling, so this is a fantasy. And I also love this book. It was just fun to read. I gave it 4.5 stars because it wasn't perfect, but I really enjoyed both of those books by her. Number 8 is Newest Fictional Crush. I don't really get fictional crushes, so instead I decided to, for this question, talk about my favorite ships, so my favorite couple that I have read so far this year, and that would be Ethan and Olive from The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. And this is a hate to love romance plus and also like fake relationship trope book, and I just really love these two together and their chemistry, and so they were my favorite relationship instead of my favorite crush. Number 9 is your favorite character from a book so far, and there's a series that I started this year that I'm really loving, and that is the Song of the Lioness series by Tamara Pierce, and Alana is our main character, and I just love Alana. Like, she's the kind of strong female that I really love, that she's strong because she is actually physically strong. Like, she can fight and use a sword and like totally can stand up to any guy in a fighting scenario physically, but she's also strong emotionally. There's a lot of stuff about her relationships, and in this series it's a fictional land, but it very similar to kind of olden times here, like, I don't know, medieval times, when women have their place and they don't necessarily have a lot of say in a relationship. They want to get married because that's the only way to support themselves and all that, where Alana, she has the possibility of getting married and stuff like that, and she's like, well, I have to decide if that's good enough for me, if that's what I really want. And I just love her strength of both spirit and in physical form. So I really love Alana. She's my new favorite character. Number 10 is a book that made you cry. I don't cry often in books. Like, it takes quite a bit to make me cry. I mean, I might like tear up or whatever, but to actually physically cry. But there has been 2 books this year that have made me cry. The first one was The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. This is a World War II story about 2 sisters and just follows both of them and their trials and things they go through during the war. And I cried in a very specific place in this book, but I don't want to like tell you what that is because it would be a spoiler because it's towards the end. But it was something that was very personal to me, and I definitely cried. And even when I was like telling my husband about it later, I cried again. And then another one was one I just read last week, so you haven't even heard me review it yet, and that was A Heart and a Body in the World by Deb Coletti. And this book, I can't really tell you the reasons why I cried with this book because we don't really know the big tragedy that happened. Basically, this girl is running across country because she's kind of running away from a tragedy that happened in her life, and trying to like move on from it. And we don't know what that tragedy is till towards the end. And I definitely cried a couple times in this book because it just is really like, it really touches me. And it turned out that what happened, her tragedy, was something that I'm like really personally passionate about. So yeah, I definitely cried at the end of that book. Number 11 is a book that made you happy. And I read in March, I read a lot of middle grade books, and I ended up reading 4 Roald Dahl books. And these were books that I had read as a child, but I was rereading as an adult, and they just made me so happy. I loved every single one of those books. I think most of them I gave 5 stars because they were just so fun to read and made me smile and laugh. So the 4 specifically that I read were Matilda, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, James and the Giant Peach, and the BFG, and I just love them all, and I look forward to reading more of his books to make me happy. Number 12 is the most beautiful book that you've bought so far this year, and I looked back through all my hauls, and I would say probably the most beautiful cover I've bought so far is Wild Beauty by Anna Marie McLemore. I have not read this book yet, but I just think it's pretty with all of the flowers and the writing and all that. It's the prettiest book cover so far. And then number 13 is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? Well, I don't necessarily set myself a goal of like which books I'm going to read in a year, except if you watch any of my Christmas video series that I did tell myself that I was going to finish a bunch of series this year, and I had 11 series in that video. I'll link it down below if you care to see all the series. I had 11 series that I thought I was going to finish. Well, okay, I looked back halfway through the year, and out of those 11 series, I have only finished 2. So that means I have 9 more series that I would have to finish. And it's not even like there's one book left to finish. Like, I have several books in some of these series. So that goal did not really work, because so far I've just started a new series. So just I would say that like the books I have to read the rest of this year I need to focus more on series and finishing them. I know I'm not going to finish all 9 of those remaining series, but some of the ones I want to focus on because I own the books, and I think that I can try to finish at least these 4 series by the end of the year are the Study series by Maria V. Snyder. I have read the first, and I'm going to read Magic Study this month. It's on my TBR. So hopefully by the end of June, I will have had 2 of the 3 done, and so I can finish the 3rd out the rest of the year. And then I have the Queen's Thief series by Megan Wallen Turner. And the problem is I've only read 1 of these so far, and I think there's 5 of them in the series. So I'll just tell myself I want to read at least 2 more by the end of the year. And then I have the Sherlock Holmes mysteries by Arthur Conan Doyle. I've read the first 2 of the novels, and I've been meaning to start the first short story book, and for the last 2 months I've had it on my TBR and haven't done it yet. So I would really like to at least read a couple more of these in the series before the end of the year. And the last one is the Charles Lennox Mysteries by Charles Finch. I just recently read the prequel for this, I think like just a couple weeks ago. But I still have 3 more books in the regular series that I need to read. And so I'd like to at least read a couple more of those. So yeah, I'm kind of like bringing down my expectations on this. I was very like ambitious at the beginning of the year, thinking that I would finish 11 series. It's a lot. So I'm going to focus on those 4 series to finish by, or at least like work on more by the end of the year. So that's it. That's the end of my mid-year freak out tag. Shared some of my favorite books and some of the things I loved so far this year. I'd love to hear some of the things you've loved, because I always like to add more books, or at least if I already own the book, I might like bump it up on when I read it if I hear that it's really great. Thanks. Bye.